as we predicted in a previous episode of this show, some very famous people are going to be paying big money for lawyers, and it all involves a very slick advertising campaign involving FTX. Now, if you have not been following along here, you say, well, what are you worried about? That's a crypto thing. It's a sports show. I want to hear my sports. All right, listen, calm down. All right, calm down. All right, you probably don't know where I'm going. So Tom Brady, you've heard of him. He's an athlete. Stephen Curry, he's a pretty good jump shooter. Shaquille O'Neal, legend. Naomi Osaka, pain in my ass. And other people like Giselle, the ex of Tom Brady, and Larry David, and a bunch of other people that aren't as famous. And sports franchises like the Golden State Warriors are now defendants in a massive class action lawsuit against the now collapsed FTX and their CEO, their shady CEO, this guy Sam Bankman-Fried, better known as SBF.
Who?
I've never heard of the guy until like a week ago, but SBF, I don't roll in those circles. Now, in the lawsuit, the nitty-gritty, the allegation is that FTX and this SBF guy, there's a lot of letters, Sam, and the celebrities there were a part of a scheme to defraud investors. It also alleges, among other things, that it was devised to take advantage of unsophisticated investors from around the country. So taking advantage of the rubes, which, just between us here, isn't that what happens on Wall Street all the time? Get that dumb money, right? They always say that on Wall Street, get that dumb money. Anyway, the lawsuit was filed in Florida, Southern District Court. Now, it claims that the defendants, the celebrity class there, were active participants in the offer and sale of unregistered securities in the form of yield-bearing accounts, close quote on that. That's right out of the lawsuit. So let us discuss the question. What is your initial reaction to Tom Brady, Steph Curry, and these other celebrities being sued over FTX? So I've got Huckleberry Finn, Blind Spot, and Giant Octopus. And we will tie all of these things together, and we are going to make a migraine headache, which I'm guessing the people around these celebrities have right now as they try to sort through this mess. All right, so we'll start here. All of this was preordained. It was guaranteed to happen. The moment FTX went belly up, you knew, and I knew, and we all knew that we were going to get a typhoon of lawsuits. Boom! Just like that. So the other shoe has dropped. It's pretty wild to think that all of these big names, the biggest names we have in sport and pop culture, are involved in the crypto Titanic, and they've hit the iceberg. And it appears to me that Tom Brady, Shaquille O'Neal, Stephen Curry, and all these others were guilty of not taking the wisdom of a literary classic from Mark Twain, Huckleberry Finn, who wrote in the 1800s, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And yet, these elites in sports and entertainment, they had eyeballs the size of dinner plates when they saw how much money was flying around. Now, it would appear they're going to spend whatever they made from said venture with FTX, they're going to spend most, if not all of that, and then some, in terms of billable hours, trying to cut a deal with the feds to get out of that. Now, this is not like a little bit of money. We're talking about $11 billion that U.S. investors, and maybe it's you, maybe you're one of the people that was involved in this, you lost money on this. I'd love to talk to you if you were, but that's $11 billion. It's a mind-blowing amount of money. Now, page 2. How concerned should these famous folks be about the lawsuit? Brady and Steph Curry. So on the MALLER scale of concern, 1 to 10, with 10 being, oh man, we're done, I'm at a 7.5, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to go through this. Now, on the surface, you would say, nothing going on here. Like, that's the initial thought, nothing going on. After all, we're talking about endorsers. They were not working for the company. They were just being paid to promote the company, FTX. But ultimately, this FBF guy, this Sam guy, whoever this cat is, he's the guy, obviously, who needs to be sent to the Hoosgow involved in this. But it's a white-collar crime, so he's likely not going to do any real time. And so while that part of it's true, if you dig a little deeper, all right, you take a look, and these commercials were great. I'm in the commercial business. I do a lot of commercials, but I love my favorite commercial, that Larry David spot, is one of the top commercials in my life. It aired during the Super Bowl. It was wonderful, right? It's a great commercial. If only the product was as good as the commercial. And Larry David, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it was the commercial where he rejected the wheel, coffee, the Constitution, electricity, putting a man on the moon, a bunch of stuff, and other innovations. He just, that's not going to work. He also dismissed FTX in the commercial. And he had the famous line, which when we look back on this years from now, and some people go to jail and other people get fined a lot of money, we look back at that line, we will all smile, because Larry David said at the end of the commercial, I'm never wrong about this stuff, never. And it turns out he was actually right. So FTX paid Larry David a lot of money to sarcastically say their company wouldn't work, and Larry David was right. Now, meanwhile, Steph Curry, the sharpshooter, said in his ad that he was not that knowledgeable about crypto. Now, that would have been fine. If that had been, you said, well, that would have been okay. Similar to the Larry David tongue-in-cheek thing and all that, if he had stopped there. But he didn't stop. Right? However, he added, as he looked very dramatically into the camera, holding his phone with the app for FTX up, he said, I don't need to be. Right? I'm not knowledgeable about crypto. I don't need to be. With FTX, I have everything I need to buy, sell, and trade crypto safely. Who goofed? I've got to know. Now, that last part is obviously the dagger. That's the dagger to the heart. Now, as the late, great radio icon, when I got into radio, he was the most listened to man in radio, Paul Harvey. As he used to say, you've heard the news, and now the rest of the story, or something like that. So these celebs, although they disclosed their partnerships with the crypto scam artist, FTX, here's the problem. They never disclosed the nature, scope, and the amount of compensation that they personally received. We don't know how much Tom Brady got, or Curry, or Shaq, or any of these people. And you say, well, it's not our business, it doesn't matter. Well, the problem is it is a problem for the government and the people that look over this stuff, the oversight. And so because they didn't disclose how much they got in compensation in exchange for the promotion of the deceptive crypto platform, that is a massive blind spot. And the SEC, I'm not talking about Southern Fried Football, the U.S. Security and Exchange Commission, the big powerful SEC, they have rules in place that say if you fail to disclose, if you don't disclose this information, that is a violation of what they call anti-touting provisions of the federal securities laws. There's a lot of legalese in this bullcrap, but essentially, in layman's terms, the lawsuit spells out that none of these defendants, none of these rich, powerful people performed any due diligence before marketing the FTX products to the public, and they didn't disclose how much they made, and as a result, they got to pay up, and they will pay. Every one of these celebrities is going to have to pay a ton of money, and my evidence on that, Kim Kardashian, who she likes an athlete or two, she had and a bunch of other people, but she was the big name. She was caught red-handed violating that law, and she had to pay out, I believe, millions, over $1 million in fines, but they've gotten over millions of dollars, the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, in fines from celebrities that have not disclosed this. All right, last word here. Will this story, the FTX story, change future product endorsements in our world? We work in the sports world. And I'm going to go no on this. And the reason I'm going to go no is I've been around the block a few times, not my first barbecue. So the lesson is never passed on to future generations. It's never passed on. Sports is not, it's not insulated from charlatans. Like nothing is, right? I mean, there's scam artists amongst us right now. There's a bunch of maggots out there trying to cause problems. But it's a breeding ground for them, the sports world. And you think of in somewhat recent years, I'm not going to go too far back here, but the New York Mets for years were hamstrung because Bernie Madoff, the scam artist investor there from New York, and the Mets ownership was tied into Bernie Madoff. And when that fell apart, the Mets were in a holding pattern for years. The Houston Astros, before they became the cheating Astros, they played at a ballpark which was called Enron Field. If you don't know the history of Enron, you might want to look that up. And now you can add the Miami Heat, who up until a few days ago played at the FTX Arena. They're on the naughty list as well. This stuff happens time and again. It is cyclical. It is predictable. And whatever the hustle is, inevitably, whoever's doing the hustle try to get involved in sports because there's a lot of money in sports. There's also a lot of dummies in sports. And so they try to get involved in it, and they try to combine their world with the sporting world, and inevitably the people in sports are like, sure, they don't do any due diligence. They say, okay, we'll do it. The FTX collapse is like a giant octopus that has wreaked havoc with its tentacles all over the sports world. Right? And not only this big name individual we talked about, mentioned the Miami Heat, $135 million naming rights deal for their arena out the window. Major League Baseball's umpires, human billboards, had FTX patches. They were the first ever uniform patch for umpires. They were wearing them a few weeks ago during the World Series. They had them on. The Golden State Warriors took $10 million a year from FTX to put digital billboards up around their arena, ads on the floors, other advertising for a global deal from the Crooked Company. There's an esports organization. We don't roll in that world, but something called TSM. I don't know what that is. But they had a $210 million sponsorship deal with FTX. So the lesson, again, is buyer beware. Don't be a sucker. And these companies were paying a lot of money to, or FTX was paying a lot of money to these companies, but the whole end game was to sucker you and me, right? Get our money, get it our wallets. And these athletes were like, oh yeah, we're going to get these people. And they were like totally okay with it. They were totally fine with it until it all blew up, kablooey, just like that. And all of a sudden, now we got a problem. Well, of course you got a problem now.